Okay, so we're in the back over here. What we're looking at right here is the rear differential, also known as the final drive. Okay, now this is a big part of the drivetrain. You want to make sure that the mounts for this thing, the bushings up there and the carrier bolt, don't have any give. You don't want that thing moving around. You want to listen for any clunking or movement from the back end when you're shifting and accelerating. Okay, so you want to check for oil leaks at the CV joints over here, the output shafts. And you want to check for oil leaks at the input shaft where the drive shaft comes into the rear diff back here. So, and I did forget to mention this while we had the car up in the air, but another big issue, and this is one of those things that it happens to a pretty low percentage of people, but you do not want it to happen to you. Oil pump nut. Okay, you may or may not have heard about this. The sprocket that turns the oil pump itself. Okay, the nut that holds the sprocket onto the oil pump is a reverse threaded 17mm nut. It's torqued down to 19 foot-pounds. That thing has been known, either due to vibrations, either due to the car being spun out and the engine turns backwards for a split second before it kicks off, because you don't dump the clutch in quick enough. Regardless of what triggers it, it has been known to back off away from the sprocket. The sprocket is on a spline shaft, but eventually what happens without a nut on there, that sprocket that drives the oil pump falls off. So literally it could happen to you at any given point in time. It's regardless of what year, regardless of how many miles you have in the car. It's happened to people with 40,000. People have gone over 200 without an issue. There's no correlation between model year, mileage, or anything. Okay, could happen at any given point in time. The fix for that is to drop the oil pan out of the car, which is no small feat. I did it to this car. It was a big pain in the butt. But once you drop the oil pan out, you can get right to that sprocket. You safety wire the nut, you weld the nut, you stake the threads, you put Loctite on there, anything to just make sure that it's not going to do any moving and fall off and have the sprocket fall off. Because once that happens, you oil starve your motor, and you have literally a matter of seconds once that light goes on to catch the thing before you seize up an S52 or an S50 if you got a 95. So just something to take note of. If you buy one of these cars, plan on doing the job. Don't think it will happen to you, because it's happened to too many people that took that stance on it. So don't go too long driving the car around if it hasn't been done. Oil pump nut. Take care of it. And oh my God, we're finally inside the car. All right. A couple things I want to point out in here. Let's take a look at the instrument cluster over here. Okay. So you see these indicator lights up over here. You got the check engine light, you got the airbag light. Okay. I believe there's an ABS light as well. I'm not positive about that though. Have a pre-purchase inspection done. Have the thing scanned for codes. Make sure it's clear, because just because these things aren't illuminated over here, it doesn't necessarily mean that the bulbs are behind there. You get what I'm saying? Okay. I did drive one that didn't have an illuminated airbag light over here, and yeah, guess what? There was a code. So the occupancy sensors in these seats, they do go sometimes. It's not a terribly cheap fix. I mean, it won't break the bank or anything, but it's something you want to take into consideration if you're buying the car. Another thing, okay, concerning odometer fraud. If the cluster has been messed with, if it's been replaced, if anything fishy is going on with it, it will tell you, okay? And the indicator for that is a little red dot right under where it says miles over here. I don't know if you can see. See that little dot right there? That will illuminate right there, okay? So that's just something to take note of. If you're driving one around and you see that, walk away from the car. Don't even mess around with it, okay? Okay, while we're in here, the shifter. This is something that you got to take note of. It's not the strongest point in the car. It's a little bit of a weak point. The shift bushings, after a while, they wear. They give the shifter a little bit of a vague feel. That, maybe coupled with older motor mounts or transmission mounts, you can wind up money shifting this car. And what I mean by money shifting is you put the thing in the wrong gear without realizing it. And that happens in high torque situations. Say you go like a hard 1-2 shift, and then you're ready to go up to 3, and you're really winding the motor out in second gear. You go to put the thing up, you think you're in third gear, but you're really going straight back up into first gear. You drop the clutch out, you mechanically over rev the motor, 10,000 RPM, time for a new S52. So something you got to watch out for. I've not had a problem with my car, but I know that a number of people that I've talked with on the forums and stuff like that, they've over revved the motors, mechanically over revved them, and you know, the money shift is not something that you want to You don't want to be part of that club, so just something to be aware of. If the shifter feels vague, if you're driving around, it's kind of like a little bit hard to tell, like under high torque situations, what gear you're putting it in. Look into replacing the shifter bushings, look into replacing the motor mounts or the tranny mounts. The shifter bushings, typically you have to drop the transmission down and replace them. You can kind of get your hands up in there to get at the gearbox and get at that linkage down there without dropping the transmission, but it's a pain in the butt. So dropping the transmission requires dropping the exhaust system, disconnecting the drive shaft. It's like a big ordeal. So vague shifter feeling isn't something to be taken lightly, because it could be issues with the mounts or the shifter bushings, neither of which are the easiest fix. So another issue with these things, fifth gear lean. Okay, especially when cold, the fifth gear gate, it winds up sticking in there. Okay, and mine's stuck in there right now because I just did another take of this video and pushed it over here to show you. See how it kind of doesn't go back to home where it should be? When the motor warms up, it'll pop right back over here, but while it's cold, it kind of has a tendency to stay over here. It's an issue in the winter. It doesn't make the car undrivable. It makes it a little bit annoying. If you're on the highway and then you go to get off an off-ramp or something like that, and you want to go from like 5th to 4th, it won't go home. It'll stick over in 5, so you kind of have to physically move it in the right place and then pull it back. Or, you know, same thing for 3rd gear. Mine will do it in the winter until the car's warmed up. After it's been driven for about 10 or 15 minutes, it's totally fine. I've heard of other people having issues where it just does it all winter long. Other people just do not have any issue with it. So if it annoys you, drive the car when it's cold. Don't let them tell you, oh yeah, we had to take it out or whatever. Get the car warmed up, see if it makes a difference, but definitely try to drive the thing around when it's cold and see if that's an issue. If it's not an annoyance, if you're willing to deal with it when the car's cold, then, you know, no big deal. Another thing, if this bothers you, take a look at the cigarette lighter. See if the car's been smoked in. Okay, if this thing's been used, I don't know, I don't smoke. I wouldn't want a car that's been smoked in. They just stink. It's like impossible to get it out of the carpets and stuff like that. So just something to be aware of. Climate control, while we're up here. The climate control does have a cabin air filter, a microfilter that is under the dash over here. Okay, you got to take the glove box out to get to it. It's kind of a pain in the butt. It takes about a half hour to an hour. If you test drive one, and you can really hear the blower motor kicking back here, but the airflow isn't all that good, that could be the culprit to it. You know, there are other things that could cause low flow for the climate control over here, but the cabin air filter itself should be replaced periodically, and they do get loaded up and they do affect the airflow, so that's just something to take note of. It's another thing, like if you buy the car, you want to take care of it. You want to do the oil pump nut, you want to do the cabin air filter, you want to change all your fluids, you know, get a punch list of preventative maintenance stuff that you want to take care of so that you don't have to worry about it later on. The key to maintaining these cars is preventative maintenance, so I don't know. I think we've covered a lot of areas, a lot of different things, so I guess I'm going to end the video here. Again, if there's anything all that you want to see, anything other than stuff that I showed you, any other questions, feel free to send me a comment, send me a message. You know, I can either add on to this video with a video response or make a new one, or, you know, whatever else. So I don't know. Thanks for watching, and as usual, any questions, comments, or anything like that, just you know, let me know.